Hi everybody, and welcome to the next video in my series about my new game Battle for Antares, which I'm going to release on Steam in a couple of weeks. There's still some polishing I need to do, but it will be on Steam quite soon. And in this series I would like to discuss with you all the technical details, all the design choices that I've made, how everything works. And in this particular video I would like to discuss how combat works. So how do drones fight against each other, what happens internally to make this behavior here. Last time we've already discussed what happens when you move around the rally point, so how these drones move within space towards the rally point. And like I said, in this video I would like to discuss how combat itself works. Okay, so let's right away dig into this. So this is, probably you remember from last time, this is the move function for the rally point. So this is being called when you right click into space to move your rally point, or when the AI moves its rally point to a new location. And one of the first things that happened was to check whether we are now close by to the other rally point. And if that's the case, if your rally point is closer than a threshold to the opponent's rally point, then essentially there is combat, and both this rally point and the other rally point are informed that now combat is happening. This toggle combat itself, there was some logic to happen to handle the transition between from combat to non-combat and the other way around. And essentially the magic was happening in here. So if there is combat happening, then all the drones which are currently checked into this rally point are informed that they should now engage combat, or that they should disengage combat if there's no longer combat. So that's the mechanism for drones which are already checked in to the rally point. Probably you remember from this drone movement function here over here, that when drones reach the rally points, when they are close by, then essentially they check into the rally point. And that means they tell the rally point that now they are close by, and the rally point itself is keeping this list of all the drones which are checked into the rally point. So the rally point knows which drones are close by, and that means that when there is combat, it can inform all the drones that now they should engage combat. For other drones which arrive later, we remember that now there is combat in here, and when drones check into the rally point here at this point, then we inform them. So if a drone checks into the rally point after it was toggled to combat mode, then at this branch all the drones are informed. But eventually all the drones learn that now they should fight, or not. So this mechanism is handled here. So all what is left to do now is to do the actual fighting mechanics. And that means that drones need to select a target and then shoot on the target, determine how much damage they do, reduce the respective hit points of the opponent's drone, and if the hit points fall below 0, then of course the actor needs to be destroyed and stuff. So all this kind of mechanisms now need to be handled here. This is something which I for sure did not want to have in the tick function of the drone actor, because depending on how big your fleet is, you can have many of these drones. And if I would move this kind of mechanics and functionality into the tick function, then there would be a lot of logic happening all the time, or being executed all the time. But most of the time there's not really something to do, right? I mean, the drones fire once, and then they need to wait a certain amount of time until they can fire again. And until that's the case, there's no reason to execute any kind of additional logic. So that's why I decided to do this kind of combat mechanism with events. So when drones should engage combat, essentially I'm just setting this variable is fighting for the drone, and when they disengage combat, then essentially I reset that variable to false. And now all I need to do is I need to check if there is this other variable fighter timer running. So if the fighter timer is already running, then I don't need to do anything, right? But if it's not running, then essentially I need to get it running. So if the drones engage combat and there is no timer running yet, then essentially I want to have that timer running by going up into this logic here. That means that what I need to do here in this fire event is I need to check if we are still fighting, because there's a chance that until this event, this event here is called recurrently. You will see that later. So in this very first execution, of course, there will always be fighting. But if later on drones are no longer fighting, then the execution will stop here. Yeah, so we're checking if we are still fighting, and if not, then essentially the fighter timer is no longer running. So this mechanism allows me to have this kind of loop happening all the time when there is combat, and as soon as there's no combat, we exit this loop and no longer execute anything. This is a measure to save computation time. Right? We're only doing this if we need to. So okay, let's assume for now that there is fighting, that this drone is actually engaged in active combat. Then we need to update our target drone and make sure that we be called again. So this logic here, set timer by event, essentially ensures that after a certain amount of time, this event is called again. So this is creating this loop where after the weapon fire cycle time, this event is called again. Again, we're checking whether we are still fighting, and if that's the case, then we are again executing this upper branch where we select a new target drone and then make sure that we are getting called again. The target drone mechanism, update to target drone mechanism, is pretty much straightforward. We are just asking the rally point to pick the other rally point to pick a random target. So when the player drones asking the enemy's rally point to pick a target, and this target picking is essentially a random draw. We are just doing a random draw from all the drones which are checked in, but probably you have seen also last time in this check-in function that essentially there was this upper logic here which I didn't discuss last time. So essentially here what happens is that I have this drones array where I just remember all the drones which are checked in. So these are potential valid targets to be selected. But I'm also keeping this list of bomber targets. So here I have another array of only the bombers. Yeah, because what I wanted to achieve is that if you have bombers in your fleet, then they are much more likely to be selected as a target. In some sense, they taunt the enemy to target these bombers, and to compensate for that, I gave the bombers much more hit points to compensate. So these are essentially the tanks in your fleet, right? So when we ask the other rally point to pick a target, what we now need to do is we need to decide from which array we need to choose, whether we are choosing from all the drones or whether we are just choosing from the bombers. And the chance for that happening, so that the chance for picking only bombers is essentially calculated here, where essentially we just calculate the ratio of how many bombers to drones do we have in the fleet, and then there's some math in here, and we turn that into a random chance. So the more bombers we have in our fleet, the more likely they are getting selected. And if we decide to not pick from the bomber only array, then we're picking from all the drones, which also contain all the bombers, of course. So that makes the bombers more likely to be selected compared to the other drones, right? So this random target mechanism just makes sure that we select a random target from all the targets which are checked in, and it prefers bombers if there are any. So that's pretty much this logic. So after this random target is selected, what we now need to do is, on the one hand, we need to set up some visual effects for these kind of laser shoots that you see. That is something we can discuss probably in another video. But what we also need to do is we need to calculate the hit chance. So what is the chance of the drone hitting another drone? And then if we hit, we just need to calculate the strength with which we hit and then inform the other drone. So the hit chance itself is also calculated within the rally point, and essentially we just take the ECM strength, which is defined by how many electronic frigates you have, and if you have no electronic frigates, no ECM strength in your fleet, then essentially you have a 40% hit chance, and this is then gradually increased up to 80% hit chance based on how much ECM strength you have. And so, but this is calculated for the whole fleet, meaning that the more ECM strength you bring, the more hit chance your drones have. But on the other hand, since the electronic frigates have much less direct damage output, there is a trade-off you need to do. If you would bring only electronic frigates to the fight, then you would have a super high hit chance, but the damage that you do will be very little. And if you bring none of the electronic frigates, then you may have a lot of damage, but the hit chance is low. So there's a balance that you need to do, and that makes up this good fleet composition. Same for the bombers. Yeah, they help you deflect damage because they have so much hull strength, but they taunt targets to hit them, extending the lifetime of your fighter drones. But on the other hand, if you only bring bombers, then you again miss out damage, right? So that's why you need to make this kind of you need to balance your fleet composition. Okay, so after selecting the hit chance, we're just doing this random draw to see if we hit, and if we hit, we just need to decide by how much we hit, and this is essentially just saying that you were just doing a random draw between the firepower 0 and the double firepower, meaning that on average we do this firepower damage, and then we just execute this hit function. By the way, while I'm explaining that, I see that there's still a bug in here. So this hit from should not be always player. It should be the empire of the drone. You know, so I think there was this get owner function here. Oh, let me figure that out later. So essentially, when we now execute the hit, we just need to we're giving the damage here, and we're just subtracting the damage from the maximum hit points that we have, and if they fall down to 0, then we need to destroy the actor. And if not, then we create this drone hit animation, which are just these numbers indicating how much damage you do, and then they just move upwards and then disappear and vanish. So that's pretty much the logic here. We're just creating the widget here, making sure that it's correctly positioned by again taking the actual location of the drone and projecting that into the screen coordinates, and then positioning the widget correctly, and then that's the mechanism here. Okay, I would say that's it for now. So if there are any open questions that you have, shoot me a message, leave a comment down below. I'm sure I can focus on those. If you have other topics that you would like to have discussed or highlighted, then I can also produce respective videos for that. So just let me know what interests you most. Until then, thank you very much for listening, and then see you next time. Goodbye.